The morning light filtered through the blinds, painting golden stripes across Ethan's bedroom as I helped him with his tie. At 8 years old, this was his first time wearing one, and his little fingers fumbled with the unfamiliar fabric. Like this, Dad? He twisted the silky material into something resembling a pretzel. Almost, buddy. I smiled, kneeling down to his level. Here, let me show you again. Today was the day. Ethan's school talent showcase, where he'd be playing piano in front of the entire elementary school. For 3 months, he'd practiced Clair de Lune, until his small fingers could dance across the keys with surprising grace. The piece was ambitious for his age, but his music teacher had insisted he had a natural gift. Mom's going to be so surprised when she hears me play, right? Ethan's eyes sparkled with anticipation as I straightened his collar. She sure will be, I replied, feeling a familiar twist in my gut. She's going to be so proud. Jessica had promised she would be there. After missing his last 2 school events, she'd looked Ethan in the eye 3 weeks ago and sworn she wouldn't miss this one for anything. I wanted to believe her, for Ethan's sake more than mine. Is she meeting us there or coming home first? Ethan asked, inspecting his reflection in the mirror with an adorable seriousness. Meeting us there. She's got that big project at work, remember? But she said she'd be sitting front and center by the time you play. The lie tasted bitter. But I'd learned to swallow such things for Ethan's sake. The truth was I hadn't heard from Jessica since yesterday morning. My texts asking what time she'd arrive at the school had gone unanswered. But today wasn't the day for Ethan to worry about any of that. You look like a proper gentleman, I said, stepping back to admire him. Navy blue blazer, khaki pants, and that light blue tie that matched his eyes. Jessica's eyes. Just one finishing touch. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. What's that? He asked, curiosity lighting up his face. Open it and see. His small fingers worked the box open to reveal a pair of silver music note cufflinks. Real cufflinks? Like yours? His voice rose with excitement. Every pianist needs the proper attire, I replied, helping him attach them to his shirt. These were mine when I was a boy. My father gave them to me before my first recital. But you don't play piano, Ethan said, admiring how the silver caught the light. No, but I played violin. Not nearly as well as you play piano, though. As we drove to the school, Ethan bounced in his seat, alternating between nervous energy and focused concentration as he airplayed sections of his piece. I kept my phone in the cup holder, screen up, willing it to light up with a message from Jessica. The school parking lot was already filling when we arrived. Parents clutching bouquets and cameras streamed toward the auditorium entrance. I checked my watch, still an hour before the showcase began. Plenty of time for Jessica to arrive. Do you think we should save Mom a seat? Ethan asked as we approached the entrance. Absolutely. Right between us, so she can be close to her star performer. Inside, the elementary school auditorium hummed with activity. Teachers arranged children in specific areas, while the AV club tested microphones and lights. I guided Ethan to where the other performers were gathering. Mr. Chen wants all the musicians backstage for a sound check, Ethan explained, suddenly looking nervous. What if I mess up, Dad? I knelt down, placing both hands on his shoulders. Listen to me. You've practiced harder than anyone. But even if you hit every wrong note, which you won't, I'll still be clapping the loudest because I'm so proud of how hard you've worked. But Mom will be just as proud, I finished. Now go show Mr. Chen what you can do. As Ethan walked toward the stage, Miss Abernathy, his homeroom teacher, approached me with a smile. He looks so grown up today, she said. I've heard him practicing. He's got quite a talent. Thanks, I replied, feeling that surge of paternal pride. He's been counting down the days. And Jessica? Will she be joining us today? There was something in her tone, a carefulness, that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. She's coming straight from work, I said firmly. Should be here any minute. Miss Abernathy nodded, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Wonderful. I've saved seats in the front row for parents of performers. You'll have an excellent view. I checked my phone again. No messages. I sent another text. Auditorium filling up. Ethan's asking where you are. Please tell me you're on your way. The message showed as delivered, but not read. I found our seats and placed my jacket on the empty chair between mine and where Ethan would sit when not performing. As families filled in around me, I kept turning toward the door, scanning each new arrival. With each passing minute, the knot in my stomach tightened. Ethan appeared from backstage 30 minutes before showtime, his face flushed with excitement. "Mr. Chen said my sound check was perfect," he exclaimed, then looked at the empty seat. "Mom's not here yet?" "Traffic must be bad," I said, forcing a smile. "But she'll be here, she promised, remember?" Ethan nodded, but I could see doubt creeping into his expression. "Maybe you should call her?" "Good idea." I stepped into the hallway and called Jessica's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Jess, it's me. The showcase starts in 30 minutes. Ethan's looking for you. Please call me back." When I returned to my seat, Ethan was counting the rows of chairs, a distraction technique he often used when anxious. "Did you reach her?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "She didn't pick up. Probably driving and being safe." I ruffled his hair gently. "Hey, want to run through your introduction one more time?" As he practiced saying his name and the title of his piece, I kept one eye on the entrance door and the other on my silent phone, wondering which would bring news of Jessica first, and increasingly certain that neither would bring good news at all. The seats around us filled rapidly as the clock ticked closer to showtime. Proud parents clutched programs and positioned phones for optimal recording angles. The air buzzed with anticipation and parental pride. I sat with Ethan, one arm around his shoulders, the other hand still gripping my silent phone. "It's getting really full," Ethan observed, his eyes constantly darting to the entranceway. "What if Mom can't find seats with us when she gets here?" "Don't worry about that," I assured him. "Miss Abernathy reserved these seats specially, see?" I pointed to the small, "reserved" sign taped to the chair between us. "Mom will find us easily." But as the minutes passed, Ethan's shoulders began to slump slightly. I could feel the tension building in his small frame. This wasn't the first time Jessica had cut things close, and we both knew it. "Maybe I should call her work," Ethan suggested, his voice smaller now. "Hey." I turned to face him directly, straightening his already perfect tie. "Today is your day. Your big moment. Let's focus on that right now, okay? Mom knows how important this is. She'll be here." The auditorium lights dimmed once, signaling 5 minutes until the start. Ethan had to join the other performers backstage, but his feet seemed rooted to the floor beside me. "What if she misses it, Dad?" His voice cracked slightly, and the sound broke something inside me. "She promised this time." I swallowed hard, pushing down my anger at Jessica and focusing solely on the little boy in front of me, our son, who deserved so much better than this moment of doubt on what should be his proudest day. "Listen to me, Ethan." I knelt down eye level with him. "You are going to play beautifully today. I will record every second of it. If, and it's a big if, Mom gets held up, she'll watch it tonight and it'll be like she was right here. But right now, Mr. Chen needs his star pianist backstage." Ethan nodded, took a deep breath, and squared his small shoulders. "Okay, that's my boy." I gave him a quick hug. "Now go show them what you've got." As he walked away, I felt my artificial smile collapse. I checked my phone again. 3:58 p.m. The showcase would begin in 2 minutes. I had 3 unread messages to Jessica and 2 missed calls. I sent one final text. "Showcase starting now. Ethan is performer #8. Please hurry." The principal approached the podium as the lights dimmed fully, welcoming everyone to Oak Ridge Elementary's annual talent showcase. I found myself barely listening to her speech about nurturing young talents and the importance of arts education. Instead, I kept turning around, scanning the dimly lit faces, hoping to see Jessica slipping in late. The first performer was a 3rd grader playing violin. As the tentative notes of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" filled the auditorium, I checked my watch again. Jessica's office was only 15 minutes from the school. Even with traffic, she should have been here by now. My phone vibrated. My heart leaped, but it was only a news alert. I silenced it quickly, feeling the curious glances from nearby parents. By the fourth performer, a group of girls performing a dance routine, I began rehearsing explanations in my head. What would I tell Ethan when his moment came and went without his mother? What possible excuse could make this okay? The program continued. A boy reciting a poem, twin sisters singing a Disney song, a surprisingly sophisticated magic act. Each performance brought us closer to Ethan's turn, and with each passing minute, the empty seat beside me seemed to grow more conspicuous. Mrs. Lawson, the mother of one of Ethan's classmates, leaned over from the row behind. "Is Jessica running late?" she whispered, her tone dripping with what sounded more like curiosity than concern. "Work emergency?" I replied curtly, not inviting further conversation. When the seventh performer took the stage, a fifth-grade girl playing flute, my stomach clenched. Ethan would be next. I slipped my phone from my pocket again, this time opening our family photo album. There was Jessica on our last vacation, building a sandcastle with Ethan. Her smile was radiant as she looked at him. Where was that woman today? "And now," announced the music teacher, Mr. Chen, "please welcome Ethan Harrison, performing Debussy's Clair de Lune on piano." A smattering of surprised murmurs rippled through the audience at the ambitious selection. Then Ethan appeared, walking deliberately toward the grand piano at center stage. His gaze swept across the front row, finding me, and then lingering for a heartbeat on the empty seat beside me. The flash of disappointment on his face was so brief that perhaps only I, who knew every expression that had ever crossed it since birth, could have caught it. Then, remarkably, he straightened his back, adjusted his cuffs with the new silver music notes catching the stage lights, and sat at the piano with the composure of someone twice his age. He placed his hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes drifted through the auditorium, delicate as moonlight. I felt my throat constrict with emotion. Pride and anger and love all tangled together as I watched our son pour his heart into each phrase. He played with a sensitivity that belied his years, each note perfectly weighted, each phrase shaped with natural musicality. In that moment, watching his small form at the grand piano, I made a silent promise. I would never let him doubt his worth again. Never let him feel the sting of being forgotten or overlooked. Jessica might not be here to witness this moment, but I was, and I always would be. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of stunned silence before the audience erupted in applause. I was on my feet instantly, clapping until my hands hurt, tears streaming down my face without shame. Ethan stood and bowed just as Mr. Chen had taught him, a smile breaking across his face as he scanned the audience. His eyes found mine again, and I nodded, pouring every ounce of pride I felt into my expression. But I couldn't miss how his gaze flickered once more to the empty seat beside me before he walked off stage. As I sat down, the program continuing around me, I finally allowed myself to acknowledge what I'd been fighting all afternoon. Jessica wasn't coming. Whatever her reason, work, traffic, or something else entirely, she had broken another promise to our son, and this time I wasn't sure I could find a way to make it right. The remainder of the showcase passed in a blur of performances that I barely registered. My applause became mechanical, my smile fixed and empty as I continued checking my phone. Nothing from Jessica. Not a text, not a call, not even the courtesy of an excuse. By the time the principal returned to the podium to deliver closing remarks, a cold, hard knot had formed in my chest. Parents around me gathered their belongings, buzzing with proud chatter about their children's performances. I remained seated, waiting for Ethan to emerge from backstage, mentally rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain the inexplicable to an 8-year-old boy who had just played his heart out for an audience missing its most important member. Miss Abernathy approached, her face a careful mask of professional concern. "Mr. Harrison, Ethan was absolutely wonderful. Such poise for someone so young." "Thank you," I replied, trying to focus on the pride rather than the anger simmering beneath it. "He's worked so hard." She hesitated, then added softly, "He's asking for his mother backstage." The words hit like a physical blow. I'll come get him. Of course. She paused. You know, children are remarkably resilient, Mr. Harrison. More than we give them credit for. I nodded, grateful for her kindness, but unable to find words that wouldn't crack with emotion. Backstage was a chaos of excited children and congratulatory parents. I spotted Ethan immediately, standing slightly apart from the crowd, his eyes fixed on the stage door, waiting, hoping. My heart splintered at the sight. Dad! He spotted me and rushed over. Did you see? Mr. Chen said it was the best Claire de Lune he's ever heard from a student my age. I saw, buddy. You were absolutely incredible. I pulled him into a hug, holding him perhaps a little too tightly. I couldn't be prouder. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine, then looking past me towards the doorway. Where's Mom? Did she see me play? There it was, the question I'd been dreading. I could have lied, could have said she'd been there but had to rush out for work, could have manufactured any number of excuses that might have preserved his moment of triumph. But I was tired of covering for Jessica's absences, tired of watching Ethan's hopeful expression crumble time after time. She's not here, Ethan, I said gently, kneeling to his level. I haven't been able to reach her. His face fell, but with a control that no 8-year-old should have had to master, he quickly composed himself. Oh, okay. Did you record it like you said? Every second, I confirmed, showing him the video on my phone. We'll show her when she— It's okay, Dad. He interrupted, his voice suddenly older than his years. She's probably really busy. Can we get ice cream? The casual way he pivoted from disappointment to moving forward struck me as both admirable and deeply sad. This wasn't the first time he'd covered his hurt with practiced resilience. Absolutely, we can get ice cream, I agreed. The best performer deserves the biggest sundae in town. As we gathered his sheet music and jacket, Mr. Chen approached, beaming. Ethan, that was exceptional playing. You should be very proud. Thank you, Mr. Chen, Ethan replied politely. Mrs. Harrison couldn't make it? The teacher asked, his expression carefully neutral as he glanced at me. Mom's really busy with work, Ethan answered before I could, the practiced excuse rolling off his tongue with disturbing ease. Mr. Chen nodded, then handed Ethan a small envelope. Well, this is for you. A special certificate for outstanding musical achievement. Not everyone gets one of these. Ethan's face brightened as he accepted the envelope. Thanks. As we walked toward the parking lot, Ethan clutched his certificate and chattered about the other performances, his own disappointment carefully tucked away. I listened, responding in all the right places, while my mind raced with unanswered questions. In the car, Ethan buckled himself in and asked, Can we call Mom on the way to ice cream? Maybe she can meet us there instead. Good idea, I said, though the knot in my stomach tightened. I dialed Jessica's number on the car's Bluetooth system, and we both listened to it ring until her voicemail picked up. Hey, it's me, I said, keeping my voice neutral for Ethan's benefit. We're heading for ice cream at Scoops after Ethan's performance, which was amazing, by the way. Give us a call when you can. Ethan stared out the window as I ended the call. Maybe her phone died, he suggested, his voice small. Maybe, I agreed, though we both knew Jessica's phone was practically an extension of her hand. She never let it die, and she was never without it. At Scoops, I ordered Ethan the most elaborate sundae on the menu. 3 scoops, hot fudge, caramel, whipped cream, the works. As he dug in, I kept my phone on the table between us, screen up, still hoping for some word from Jessica. Dad? Ethan asked after a few minutes of silence, chocolate sauce at the corner of his mouth. Are you and Mom fighting again? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask that? He shrugged, pushing ice cream around with his spoon. Because sometimes when you fight, she doesn't come home for dinner. Or she misses stuff. The simple observation revealed how much more he noticed than we'd given him credit for. All our careful attempts to shield him from the fractures in our marriage had failed. Of course they had. Children absorb everything, especially the truths adults try to hide. Your mom and I have disagreements sometimes, I said carefully. All grown-ups do, but that's not why she missed your performance today. Then why? His blue eyes, so like Jessica's, held mine steadily. I reached for my phone, intending to try calling her again, when a notification appeared on the screen. Not a text from Jessica, but a social media alert. Jessica had posted a story 15 minutes ago. Without thinking, I tapped it. The image filled my screen. Jessica, smiling broadly, a glass of wine raised in a toast. Across from her, a man I didn't recognize held up his own glass. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to take the afternoon off. Hash worth it." I stared at the image, uncomprehending at first. Then, with a dawning, burning realization, she hadn't been caught at work. She hadn't been stuck in traffic. She had chosen, deliberately, consciously chosen, to skip her son's performance for a date. "Dad, what is it?" Ethan's voice seemed to come from far away. I looked up to find him watching me with concern. Quickly, I locked the phone screen. "Nothing important," I managed, though my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "How's that ice cream?" As Ethan returned to his sundae, I struggled to contain the rage building inside me. Not just for myself. Our marriage had been in trouble for months, but for Ethan. For the little boy who had practiced for months, who had dressed in his best clothes, who had searched the audience for his mother's face at his moment of triumph. The unforgivable truth crashed over me. Jessica hadn't just failed to show up. She had never intended to come at all. Bedtime routines had a way of normalizing even the most turbulent days. As I helped Ethan into his pajamas and listened to him recount his favorite moments from the showcase, a strange calm settled over me, the artificial stillness that precedes a storm. "And did you see Lily's face when I got a bigger applause than her?" he asked, bouncing slightly on his mattress as I pulled back the covers. "She was like this." He mimicked an exaggerated look of shock that made me laugh despite everything. "Well, you did play beautifully," I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Now, teeth brushed? Check. Face washed? Double check. Brain turned off for sleep?" He giggled. "That's not how brains work, Dad." "Ah, so you've been paying attention in science class." I tucked the blanket around him, smoothing it with perhaps too much care, focusing on the simple task to avoid dwelling on Jessica's continued absence. It was now 9:30 p.m. No calls, no texts. Just that damning social media post that I'd viewed 17 more times since leaving the ice cream parlor, each viewing stoking the embers of my anger. "Can you read me a chapter?" Ethan asked, reaching for the dog-eared copy of Harry Potter on his nightstand. "Of course." I opened to the bookmarked page, grateful for the distraction. Reading aloud had always been our special ritual, one constant in a life that had grown increasingly unpredictable. Halfway through the chapter, Ethan interrupted. "Dad, is Mom coming home tonight?" The question hung in the air between us. I closed the book slowly, weighing my response. "I'm not sure, buddy." "Because of work?" I hesitated. "I don't think it's work this time." Ethan nodded, absorbing this with that unnerving maturity that sometimes emerged when Jessica was concerned. "Is it because of her friend? The one she texts all the time?" My breath caught. "What friend?" "I don't know his name, but sometimes when she picks me up from school, she's laughing at her phone. One time I asked who she was talking to, and she said just a friend from work. But then she got all weird and quiet." The revelation shouldn't have surprised me. Yet it did. Ethan had noticed something I had willfully ignored, cataloging it with the precision of a child who observes far more than adults realize. "How long has she been talking to this friend?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He shrugged. "I don't know, a while. Since before Christmas, I think. 5 months. Possibly longer." The timeline unfurled in my mind, pieces clicking into place. Jessica's late nights at the office, the weekends suddenly filled with client emergencies, her increasingly guarded behavior with her phone. "Dad?" Ethan's voice pulled me back. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The directness of the question startled me. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Mikey's parents got divorced, and before they told him, his mom stopped coming to his baseball games. And then she moved out." His fingers twisted nervously in the bedspread. "Is Mom going to move out?" I took a deep breath. "I don't know what's going to happen, Ethan, but I want you to understand something very important." I took his small hands in mine. "Whatever happens between me and your mom, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. We both love you more than anything in the world. But she didn't come today, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. No, she didn't, I acknowledged, deciding honesty was the only policy that wouldn't eventually crumble. And that was wrong of her. She should have been there. Is she mad at me? God, no. I pulled him into a hug. Never. This isn't about you, I promise. Then why, Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, big mistakes. Your mom made one today by missing your performance. But it's not because she doesn't love you. The explanation felt hollow, even as I said it. How could I explain to an 8-year-old that his mother had chosen a date with another man over, witnessing one of the most important moments of his young life? I recorded the whole thing, I reminded him. She'll still get to see how amazing you were. It's not the same, he mumbled against my shoulder. No, I agreed. It's not. After a few more reassurances and the completion of our chapter, Ethan finally drifted off to sleep. I remained sitting on his bed for several minutes afterward, watching the gentle rise and fall of his chest, marveling at his resilience and feeling a fierce, protective love that bordered on pain. Downstairs, in the quiet of our kitchen, I finally allowed myself to fully process the day's events. The social media post continued to burn in my mind. Jessica, radiant with laughter, toasting with a stranger while our son scanned the audience for her face. I poured myself a drink and sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through the photos I'd taken at the showcase. Ethan at the piano, his posture perfect, his expression one of complete concentration. Ethan receiving his certificate, pride evident in every line of his small body. Ethan and me at Scoops, his smile slightly dimmed, but still present. A life continued, a childhood unfolding despite the fractures forming around it. My phone buzzed with a text. Jessica, finally. Got caught up with work. How did it go? The casual tone, the blatant lie. It ignited something in me. I typed and deleted 3 different responses, each angrier than the last. Finally, I settled on, Ethan was brilliant. He looked for you the entire time. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. I'm sorry. Traffic was insane. Then a client emergency. I stared at the message, incredulous at her continued deception. Without overthinking it, I took a screenshot of her social media post and sent it to her with no comment. The 3 dots appeared again, lingered for a long time, then, we need to talk. Not like this. You're right, I typed back. Not like this. And not tonight. Ethan's asleep. Don't wake him if you come home. I set my phone down and rubbed my temples, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. Our marriage had been struggling for months, but today marked a turning point. Jessica had crossed a line that I wasn't sure could be uncrossed. The sound of a key in the front door broke the silence. I remained seated, not trusting myself to move, as Jessica's footsteps entered the hallway, hesitated, then approached the kitchen. She appeared in the doorway, still dressed in her work clothes but with her hair and makeup freshly done. The faint scent of an unfamiliar cologne hung about her. Michael, she began, her voice carefully modulated. Don't. I cut her off, my tone low but firm. Not tonight. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You chose to spend the afternoon with someone else while our son performed at his first showcase. The showcase he's been practicing for since January. The one you promised him you wouldn't miss for anything. I emphasized her own words, thrown back now with bitter precision. She had the grace to look ashamed, but only briefly. It wasn't like that. Robert is just... Robert. The name tasted sour on my tongue. Well, I hope Robert was worth breaking our son's heart. That's not fair, she protested. My life can't revolve entirely around Ethan's schedule. I'm allowed to have... Don't you dare finish that sentence, I interrupted, my voice deadly quiet. This wasn't some spontaneous playdate. This was his school showcase, marked on our calendar for months. You made a choice today, Jessica. A conscious choice to put your own desires above your son's needs. She crossed her arms defensively. I made a mistake. I lost track of time. No. I stood up now, unable to contain my frustration any longer. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. This was a deliberate decision. You were never planning to come, were you? Her silence was answer enough. He kept asking for you, I continued, the words spilling out now. Before the performance, during, after, he made up excuses for you. Said your phone probably died. Said you were stuck in traffic. Our 8-year-old son was making excuses for his mother's absence. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, but I was beyond sympathy. He asked me tonight if we're getting divorced. She looked startled. What did you tell him? The truth. That I don't know what's going to happen, but that we both love him. We do, she insisted. I do love him. Then act like it, I replied, the words hanging between us like a challenge. We stood in silence for several long moments, the kitchen clock ticking loudly in the background. Finally, Jessica spoke again, her voice softer now. I'll talk to him tomorrow. Explain things. And what will you explain exactly? That Mommy missed your big performance because she was on a date? She flinched. It wasn't supposed to be like this. No, I agreed. It wasn't. I turned away from her, gathering my phone and empty glass. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. We'll figure out the rest later. As I passed her in the doorway, she reached for my arm. Michael, please, we should talk about this. There's nothing to talk about right now, I replied, gently but firmly removing her hand. You made your choice today, Jessica. Now you have to live with it. I climbed the stairs slowly, pausing at Ethan's door to check on him one last time. He slept peacefully, one arm flung above his head, his face relaxed in the gentle glow of his nightlight. Looking at him, I felt a renewed sense of resolve. Whatever happened between Jessica and me, I would make sure Ethan never doubted his worth again. I would be there, front row, center seat, for every performance, every game, every moment that mattered. Not because I had to be, but because I wanted to witness every second of his remarkable life unfolding. Some promises, I thought, as I quietly closed his door, are meant to be kept, no matter what. Morning arrived with uncomfortable clarity. I'd slept poorly in the guest room, my mind churning through the previous day's events, replaying Jessica's absence, Ethan's resilience, and the damning evidence of the social media post. By the time dawn broke, I'd reached a strange, calm state of determination. This wasn't just about Jessica and me anymore. It was about protecting Ethan from further disappointment. I rose early, showered, and made my way downstairs to start breakfast before Ethan woke. To my surprise, Jessica was already in the kitchen, still in her nightclothes, coffee mug in hand. The awkward silence between us spoke volumes. I thought I'd make Ethan's favorite pancakes, I said finally, moving to the refrigerator. I already started the batter, Jessica replied, gesturing to a bowl on the counter, and cut up some strawberries. I nodded, acknowledging her peace offering without accepting it. He'll like that. Michael, she began, her voice tentative. About yesterday. Not now. I cut her off, keeping my voice low. Not before Ethan's up. He doesn't need to see us fighting. She sighed, but didn't argue. Instead, she asked, How was he, after the performance? Disappointed, confused, but he handled it with more grace than any 8-year-old should have to. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice as I added, He's getting used to making excuses for you. Jessica flinched, her fingers tightening around her mug. That's not fair. Isn't it? I turned to face her fully. This wasn't an isolated incident, Jessica. It's becoming a pattern. The science fair, the soccer tournament, now this. Each time you have a convenient excuse. And each time Ethan puts on a brave face while looking for you in the crowd. I can't be everywhere at once, she protested weakly. No one's asking you to be, I replied, measuring coffee into the filter with more force than necessary. But is it too much to expect you to be at the important places, the ones you specifically promised to attend? Before she could respond, we heard the telltale creak of Ethan's bedroom door opening upstairs. Jessica straightened, composing her features into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Ethan appeared in the doorway moments later, hair tousled from sleep, eyes widening at the sight of his mother. Mom, you're home. Of course I am, sweetie, Jessica replied, opening her arms for a hug that Ethan readily gave. I'm so sorry I missed your performance yesterday. It's okay, he said automatically, though the slight stiffness in his shoulders told a different story. Dad recorded it. We can show you after breakfast. Jessica's smile faltered momentarily. I'd love that. And guess what? I made your favorite strawberry pancakes. With chocolate chips? Ethan asked, perking up. I'll add them now, I offered, reaching for the pantry. The familiar rhythm of our Saturday morning routine temporarily masked the tension hanging in the air. As Jessica flipped pancakes and I set the table, Ethan regaled us with details about the showcase. How nervous Lily had been before her flute solo, how Carter had forgotten his lines during his poem, how Mr. Chen had told everyone that Ethan's performance was exceptional. He spoke rapidly, enthusiasm building as he described the audience's reaction to his playing. And then everyone clapped really loud, and Miss Abernathy said I have a real gift. He beamed at Jessica. Dad stood up and clapped so long his hands turned red. Jessica glanced at me, something unreadable passing across her face. I can't wait to see the video, she said, setting a plate of pancakes in front of Ethan. I bet you were amazing. After breakfast, we gathered in the living room where I connected my phone to the TV to play the recording of Ethan's performance. Ethan sat between us on the couch, practically vibrating with excitement as he waited for Jessica to see what she had missed. On screen, Ethan appeared, walking confidently to the piano. The camera zoomed in as he adjusted his cuffs, showing off the music note cufflinks, before beginning to play. The delicate notes of Clair de Lune filled our living room, and I watched Jessica's face as she realized just how talented our son truly was. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears as she watched. When the camera briefly panned to show the audience's reaction, the empty seat beside me was clearly visible. Jessica's hand went to her mouth. The reality of her absence made concrete in that empty space on screen. When the performance ended and the recording showed the standing ovation, Jessica wiped her eyes. Ethan, that was incredible. I had no idea you could play like that. Mr. Chen says I have a natural intuition, I supplied. Yeah, that, for the music. He looked up at her hopefully. Did you really like it? Like it? I loved it. I'm so proud of you. Her voice broke slightly. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Why weren't you? The question hung in the air. Simple and devastating in its directness, Jessica shot me a panicked look, clearly unprepared for the confrontation. There was a work emergency, and then the traffic was terrible. And by the time I realized how late it was, but you weren't at work, Ethan said quietly. Dad showed me your picture at the restaurant when we were having ice cream. The color drained from Jessica's face. She looked at me accusingly, but I shook my head. I didn't show him the picture, I clarified. He saw me looking at it. What restaurant, Mom? Ethan pressed, his voice smaller now. Jessica took a deep breath. I was having a late lunch with a colleague. I lost track of time. It was a terrible mistake, and I'm so sorry. Was it the friend who texts you all the time? Ethan asked. The one that makes you laugh? The direct question seemed to physically rock Jessica back. She looked stunned, then ashamed. Ethan, it's complicated. Grown-up stuff. So you weren't coming at all? His voice trembled slightly. You forgot? No, I didn't forget, Jessica insisted, reaching for his hand. I just made a very bad choice, but it had nothing to do with you. Nothing at all. Ethan pulled his hand away, standing up suddenly. I practiced for 3 months, he said, each word deliberate and clear. 3 whole months every day, and you promised. I know, baby, I'm not a baby, he interrupted, his small face flushed with emotion. And you broke your promise, again. Without another word, he turned and ran upstairs. We heard his bedroom door slam a moment later. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica sat motionless, tears streaming down her face. He's never spoken to me like that before, she whispered finally. He's hurting, I replied simply. And he's right. You did break your promise. I know that, she snapped, then immediately softened. I know, and I'll make it up to him. How? The question wasn't accusatory. I genuinely wanted to know what her plan was. How do you make up for missing a moment like that? I don't know, she admitted, but I have to try. I nodded, then stood up. I'm going to check on him. Should I come too? I considered this, then shook my head. Give him a little time, he needs to process. Upstairs, I found Ethan lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. I knocked gently on the open door. Can I come in? He nodded without looking at me. I sat on the edge of his bed, not speaking, just present. After a few minutes, he broke the silence. Dad? Why doesn't Mom want to see me do things? The question pierced my heart. That's not true, Ethan. She does want to see you. Then why doesn't she come? His voice was thick with unshed tears. Mikey's mom comes to everything, even though she and his dad are divorced. She even brings her new husband, and they all sit together. I struggled to find the right words. Your mom loves you very much. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes. But it doesn't change how much they love their children. But how do you know? He pressed, finally turning to look at me. How do you know she loves me if she's never there? It was the question I had no answer for. The same one I'd been asking myself about her feelings for both of us. Instead of attempting an explanation I didn't believe, I pulled him into a hug. I know because I've seen how she looks at you when you're sleeping, I said finally. I know because she keeps every drawing you've ever made. I know because no one could possibly know you and not love you completely. It wasn't exactly the answer to his question, but it was the truth as I knew it. Jessica did love Ethan, even if her actions lately contradicted that love. The complexities of adult relationships, the way love could coexist with selfishness, how commitment could erode while affection remained, were too nuanced for an 8-year-old to understand. They were almost too nuanced for me to understand, and I was living through them. I'm sorry I yelled at Mom, Ethan said after a while. You were honest about your feelings, I replied. That's never something to apologize for. But if you want to talk to her about it, she's downstairs. He nodded thoughtfully. Maybe later. Can we play Legos for a while instead? Absolutely. As we sat on his floor, constructing an elaborate spaceship together, piece by colorful piece, I marveled at children's capacity for compartmentalization. While Jessica and I were drowning in the emotional fallout of yesterday's events, Ethan could still find joy in the simple act of creation, could still laugh at my clumsy attempts to follow his architectural vision. Children bend, I thought, watching him carefully position a tiny plastic astronaut in the cockpit. They don't break as easily as adults fear they might, but that resilience doesn't give us the right to test its limits. Jessica appeared in the doorway an hour later, her eyes red-rimmed but her expression composed. Room for one more builder? She asked hesitantly. Ethan considered this for a moment, then nodded. You can help with the moon base, he decided, pushing a pile of gray bricks toward her. And so the three of us sat in a fragile truce, building together as though constructing not just a toy, but a temporary shelter against the storm we all knew was still raging outside Ethan's bedroom door. Sunday morning dawned warm and clear, the kind of spring day that normally would have found us at the park or on a family bike ride. Instead, a strained politeness had settled over our household, with Jessica and I circling each other cautiously, while maintaining a united front for Ethan's benefit. Jessica had made a visible effort to engage with Ethan, suggesting games, offering to help with his weekend homework, proposing a movie marathon of his favorite films. Her attempts at connection were transparent but sincere, the actions of someone suddenly confronted with the consequences of their absence. Ethan responded with cautious warmth, accepting her attention without the unquestioning enthusiasm he once would have shown. There was a new guardedness to him, a slight hesitation before excitement, as though he was bracing himself for potential disappointment. It broke my heart to watch, even as I recognized it as a necessary form of self-protection. I was thinking, Jessica announced over lunch, that we could go get ice cream this afternoon. Ethan's choice of flavors, no limits. Can Dad come too? Ethan asked immediately, glancing between us. Jessica's smile flickered. Of course. Family outing? I nodded, though family felt like a fragile concept at the moment. Sounds good to me. And after, Jessica continued, maybe we could go to that bookstore you like. The one with the reading nook upstairs? I know you finished the Harry Potter book we're reading. We could pick out the next one. Dad already ordered it, Ethan said matter-of-factly. It's coming Tuesday. Oh, Jessica absorbed this information. Another reminder of her disconnection from the daily rhythms of Ethan's life. Well, we could find something else. Maybe that space encyclopedia you were talking about? Ethan's eyes lit up. The one with the 3D planets? That's the one. Yes. For the first time all weekend, his excitement seemed unreserved. Can we go right after lunch? And so we found ourselves wandering through Ethan's favorite bookstore that afternoon. A study in contrasts. Ethan darting excitedly between shelves, Jessica making determined efforts to connect, and me observing it all with an emotional distance that surprised even me. I felt like I was watching a play unfold, one where I knew the ending but was powerless to change it. Ethan eventually settled on not just the space encyclopedia, but also a new mystery novel, both of which Jessica purchased with obvious pleasure at being able to provide something he wanted. When he hugged her in thanks, her eyes met mine over his head, a silent plea for what? Understanding? Forgiveness? A return to how things were before? I looked away, unwilling to offer absolution so easily. The damage wasn't just to our marriage, it was to Ethan's sense of security, to his trust. And unlike my own wounded feelings, that wasn't something I could simply set aside. At the ice cream parlor afterward, Ethan ordered a monstrosity of chocolate and caramel that threatened to collapse under its own weight. Jessica took photos of him attempting to conquer it, laughing at the smear of chocolate on his nose. The scene was achingly normal, the kind of family moment we'd had countless times before. But beneath the surface, the currents had changed. I could feel it. And I suspected Jessica could too. The easy rhythm we'd once had was gone, replaced by something more deliberate, more performative. So, Jessica said, once Ethan had gone to examine the vintage pinball machine in the corner, he seems better today. Kids are resilient, I replied, scraping the bottom of my dish. But they notice more than we give them credit for. I know. She twisted her napkin nervously. Michael, we need to talk. About everything. Now isn't the time. Then when? She pressed. We can't keep going like this. Pretending everything's normal when it clearly isn't. I glanced toward Ethan, ensuring he was still occupied with the game. Fine. Tonight? After he's asleep. Jessica nodded, relief evident in her expression. Thank you. And I'm trying, Michael. With Ethan, you can see that, right? I see it, I acknowledged. But one good day doesn't erase what happened. I'm not expecting it to, she said quietly. I just want a chance to make things right. Before I could respond, Ethan bounded back to our table. Dad, Mom, I got the high score. Come see. The conversation suspended. We followed him to admire his achievement, our unfinished business hovering like a cloud on the horizon of what had otherwise been a surprisingly pleasant afternoon. That evening, after Ethan's bedtime story and the usual routine of teeth brushing and pajamas, Jessica and I found ourselves in the kitchen, the distance between us at the table symbolic of the emotional gulf that had opened. Robert is a colleague, she began without preamble. It started innocently, just lunch meetings about a shared project, then texting about work, then texting about other things. She took a deep breath. I never meant for it to go further than friendship. But it did, I stated flatly. She nodded, her gaze fixed on her hands. Not physically, but emotionally, yes. He made me feel seen, appreciated, like more than just a mom or a wife, while I made you feel invisible, she admitted. But that's not your fault, Michael. We both fell into patterns. You with Ethan, me with work. Somewhere along the way, we stopped connecting. I absorbed this in silence, recognizing the truth in her words despite the defensive part of me that wanted to reject them outright. So you chose him over Ethan's performance, I said finally, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Jessica flinched. I didn't think of it that way. Robert suggested lunch, said I seemed stressed. I told him I had Ethan's showcase, but he said it would just be a quick meal to decompress beforehand. One drink led to another and time just slipped away. You didn't even check your phone? For texts or calls? I did, eventually. By then it was too late. She looked up. tears streaming down her face. I've never hated myself more than in that moment. It's not about you hating yourself, I said, my voice softening despite my resolve. It's about Ethan feeling like he doesn't matter to you. But he does, she insisted. God, Michael, he's everything. Then why? Because I'm lost, she interrupted, the admission bursting from her with surprising force. I don't know who I am anymore. Not just as a mother or a wife, but as a person. And when someone came along who seemed interested in that person, I got caught up. The pain in her voice was genuine, and despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. I remembered Jessica from before. Vibrant, confident, ambitious. Somewhere along the line, those qualities had dimmed, replaced by a restless dissatisfaction I'd attributed to work stress or typical midlife malaise. Are you in love with him? I asked, the question I'd been avoiding since seeing that damning social media post. She shook her head immediately. No, it's not about love. It's about escape, from responsibility, from routine, from the pressure of always having to be perfect. No one expects you to be perfect, Jessica. Least of all Ethan. He just expects you to be present. I know, she rubbed her temples. And I've failed at that repeatedly. But I want to change, Michael. I want to be better for him. For all of us, if that's still possible. The question hung in the air between us. Was it still possible? Could our marriage survive not just the specter of emotional infidelity, but the deeper disconnection it revealed? I don't know what happens next, I admitted. But I do know that Ethan has to come first, for both of us. Whatever issues we have, he can't be collateral damage. Jessica nodded vigorously. I agree, completely. That means being reliable, following through on promises, being present not just physically, but emotionally. I understand. And it means complete honesty, I added firmly. No more lies, no more half-truths. If we have any chance of moving forward in whatever capacity, it has to be from a place of absolute truth. Does that mean you want me to end things with Robert? She asked hesitantly. The fact that she had to ask sent a chill through me. If you're seriously asking that question, then you already know the answer, and it tells me everything about where your priorities really lie. Jessica's face crumpled. That's not fair. I'm trying to be honest about everything. Being honest about betrayal doesn't make it less of a betrayal, I replied, standing up. I think we've said enough for tonight. As I turned to leave, Jessica called after me. What do we tell Ethan? About us? I paused in the doorway. Nothing yet. He's been through enough this weekend. We'll figure it out. But as I climbed the stairs to check on Ethan one last time, before retreating to the guest room again, I wondered what exactly we would figure out, and whether any resolution could repair the damage that had already been done. Ethan's room was dark, save for the glow of his planet-shaped nightlight. I stood in the doorway, watching his chest rise and fall in the peaceful rhythm of deep sleep. His face was relaxed, unmarked by the confusion and hurt that had clouded it when awake. In that moment, my resolve crystallized. Whatever happened between Jessica and me, reconciliation, separation, divorce, I would ensure that Ethan never again had to search an audience for a parent who wouldn't show. I would be his constant, his certainty in an increasingly uncertain world. As I closed his door softly, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Jessica. I ended things with Robert, just now, for what it's worth. I stared at the message for a long moment before responding. It's worth something, but not everything. It was a start, perhaps. But the road ahead remained unclear, shadowed by broken trust and wounded hearts. The only certainty was the sleeping boy behind the door, and my unshakable commitment to protect him from further harm, even if that meant making the most difficult decisions of my life. Monday morning arrived with the harsh ring of alarm clocks and the rushed routine of a school day. Ethan shuffled through breakfast with the sleepy reluctance typical of 8-year-olds facing the start of a week, blissfully focused on ordinary concerns, finding his favorite socks, remembering his library book, wondering what would be for lunch. Jessica and I performed our usual choreography around him. She packing his lunch while I helped gather homework and checked his backpack, the familiar routine masking the strain between us. To an outside observer, we might have appeared perfectly normal, just another family starting their week. But the careful distance we maintained, the way our conversations centered exclusively on Ethan, told a different story. "Don't forget, it's show and tell today," Jessica reminded him as she handed over his lunchbox. "Did you decide what you're bringing?" Ethan nodded, pulling his certificate from the talent showcase out of his folder. "Mr. Chen said I should bring this, and tell everyone about playing piano." Jessica's smile faltered slightly before she recovered. "That's perfect. Everyone will be so impressed. Dad said maybe next time I can play for the whole class. Mr. Chen said I could bring my keyboard to school." "That would be wonderful," Jessica agreed, glancing at me with something like gratitude for not discouraging Ethan from sharing his achievement, despite its painful associations. The morning progressed with superficial normalcy until it was time for Ethan to leave for school. Jessica usually handled the drop-off on Mondays while I headed straight to work, but today I found myself reluctant to separate. "I could take him today," I offered as Ethan put on his shoes by the door. "My first meeting isn't until 10. Jessica looked surprised, then hurt, clearly recognizing my unstated concern, that she might not follow through, might get caught up again. "I've got him," she said firmly. "We're going straight there, right, Ethan?" He nodded, oblivious to the undercurrent. "And Mom said we might stop for hot chocolate if we're early." "That sounds nice," I replied, forcing a smile as I knelt to give him a hug goodbye. "Have a great day, buddy. I want to hear all about show and tell when I get home." "I'll tell them how you clapped so hard your hands turned red," he promised with a grin. "That's right, I did." I ruffled his hair, then stood, meeting Jessica's gaze over his head. "Text me when he's dropped off?" She nodded, understanding my need for confirmation. "Of course." As they left, I watched from the window as Jessica helped Ethan into the car, buckling his seatbelt with careful attention. She looked up before pulling away, meeting my eyes through the glass with an expression of determination, a silent promise to do better. 20 minutes later, my phone pinged with a text. A photo of Ethan on the school steps, certificate in hand, a hot chocolate mustache above his smile. "Safely delivered," Jessica's message read, "and very excited about show and tell." I felt a knot of tension release in my chest, even as I acknowledged the absurdity of needing photographic evidence that my wife had completed the basic parental task of taking our son to school. This was what we'd been reduced to. Distrust disguised as casual check-ins, reassurance required for the simplest interactions. At work, I struggled to focus, my mind continuously drifting to my home situation. What would our next steps be? Jessica had ended things with Robert, or so she claimed. But was that enough to rebuild what had been broken? And even if we could repair our marriage, would it be the right thing for Ethan? These questions circled endlessly as I moved through my day, going through the motions of meetings and emails while mentally elsewhere. By late afternoon, I'd made little professional progress, but had reached one personal conclusion. Regardless of what happened with our marriage, I needed to ensure Ethan felt secure and valued by both his parents. Jessica texted again after picking Ethan up from school. Show and tell was a hit. He demonstrated proper piano hand position for everyone. Heading home now. I responded with a simple, "Thanks for letting me know, be home by 6. Then turned back to my computer, determined to complete at least one project before leaving. The house was filled with the smell of cooking when I arrived home. Jessica's apparent peace offering in the form of my favorite lasagna. Ethan greeted me at the door, eager to recount his day in exhaustive detail, particularly the reception his certificate had received during show and tell. And then Zach said I was lying about playing Debussy because it's too hard for kids. But Miss Abernathy said she was at the showcase and saw me do it, he reported triumphantly as I hung up my coat. And then everyone wanted to know when I'd bring my keyboard to class. That's great, buddy, I replied, genuinely pleased by his enthusiasm. Sounds like you were the star of show and tell. Mom says I get my musical talent from your side of the family, he added as we walked toward the kitchen. Jessica looked up from setting the table, her expression cautiously hopeful. Dinner's almost ready. I thought we could eat together and hear all about Ethan's day. The meal progressed with surprising pleasantness, Ethan's chatter filling any potential awkward silences. Jessica and I both focused our attention on him, asking questions, laughing at his anecdotes about classroom happenings, offering advice on the social politics of third grade. If Ethan noticed anything strained in our interaction, he gave no sign of it. After dinner, as Ethan worked on homework at the kitchen table, Jessica approached me in the living room where I was sorting mail. "I took the day off tomorrow," she said quietly. "I thought I'd volunteer for the field trip to the Science Museum. Ethan's teacher sent an email asking for more chaperones." I looked up, surprised. Jessica rarely took days off work, especially for school activities. "He'd like that." "I haven't told him yet," she admitted. "I wanted to make sure it was okay with you first." The fact that she felt she needed my permission to participate in our son's school event spoke volumes about how fractured our family dynamic had become. "Of course it's okay," I replied. "He'll be thrilled." She nodded, then added hesitantly, "I also called a therapist today, for myself. I have an appointment on Thursday." This revelation was even more unexpected. Jessica had always resisted the idea of therapy, viewing it as an admission of failure or weakness. That's good," I managed, genuinely impressed by this concrete step. "I meant what I said, Michael. I want to change, to be better for Ethan." She paused, then added softly, "And for us, if that's still a possibility." Before I could respond, Ethan called from the kitchen. "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" "Coming," I called back, then turned to Jessica. "We'll talk more later." The evening continued with the routine of homework, showers, and bedtime preparations. As I helped Ethan organize his backpack for the next day, Jessica appeared in his doorway. "Ethan, I have a surprise," she announced. "I'm going to be a chaperone on your field trip tomorrow." His head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. "Really? You're coming to the Science Museum?" "Really," she confirmed. "I already signed up with Miss Abernathy." But what about work?" he asked. And the question revealed how accustomed he'd become to her absences. "Work can wait," Jessica replied firmly. "This is more important." Ethan launched himself at her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "We're going to see the dinosaur exhibit and the space hall and the electricity show where they make lightning." "I can't wait," Jessica said, returning his hug with visible emotion. I watched them from across the room, feeling a complicated mixture of hope and skepticism. Jessica's efforts today, the constant communication, the home-cooked meal, volunteering for the field trip, seeking therapy, were all positive steps. But one good day couldn't erase months of neglect or rebuild trust that had been systematically damaged. Later, after Ethan was asleep, Jessica found me in the home office where I was catching up on work emails. "Can we talk?" she asked from the doorway. I closed my laptop and nodded, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat, her posture tense but determined. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, "about what you said last night, about priorities and honesty." She took a deep breath. "You were right. The fact that I even hesitated about ending things with Robert says everything." I remained silent, letting her continue. "I've been selfish and short-sighted, putting my own needs, or what I thought were my needs, ahead of my responsibilities to Ethan, to our family." Her voice wavered but remained steady. The look on his face when he realized I chose to be somewhere else during his performance. I never want to see that expression again. "Actions speak louder than words, Jessica," I said finally. "Today was a good start, but consistency is what matters to Ethan." "I know," she nodded emphatically. "That's why I'm making changes, real ones. I've requested a transfer at work, fewer travel requirements, more regular hours. I've scheduled therapy. I've marked every single school event for the rest of the year as non-negotiable in my calendar." Her determination was palpable, and despite my reservations, I found myself wanting to believe her. "What about us?" I asked. "Our marriage?" Jessica met my gaze directly. "I want to fight for it, if you're willing, but I also understand if you need time or if you can't get past what I've done." It was a fair assessment, one that acknowledged the damage without presuming forgiveness. For the first time since discovering her deception, I felt a glimmer of respect for her approach. "I don't know what I want yet," I admitted, "except that I want Ethan to be happy and secure." "That's my priority too," she agreed quickly. Whatever happens between us, Ethan comes first. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our situation settling around us. Then Jessica spoke again, her voice softer now. Do you remember when he was born? How tiny his fingers were? How he would wrap them around yours while he slept? I nodded, the memory vivid despite the years that had passed. I promised him then that I would always protect him, she continued, that I would never let anything hurt him. Her voice broke, and instead, I became the thing that hurt him. The raw pain in her voice resonated with my own anguish over Ethan's disappointment. Despite everything, we were united in our love for our son, in our desire to shield him from harm. We both want what's best for him, I said finally. That's a place to start, at least. Jessica nodded, wiping away tears. Thank you for not shutting me out completely, for giving me a chance to try to make things right. I'm not making any promises, I cautioned. About us, I mean. That's going to take time. But for Ethan's sake, I'm willing to see where this goes. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an opening, a crack in the door that had seemed firmly closed just 24 hours earlier. As Jessica left the office, I turned to my laptop again, but found myself unable to focus on work. Instead, I opened our family photo album, scrolling through images of happier times. Ethan's birth, his first steps, family vacations, ordinary moments made extraordinary by the simple fact that we were together, whole. My phone lit up with a notification. To my surprise, it was another social media alert. Jessica had posted a new story. With some trepidation, I opened it. The image showed Ethan's talent showcase certificate, proudly displayed on the refrigerator. The caption read, "So proud of my incredible son. I missed his performance, worst mom moment ever, but I'll never miss another." Some promises are meant to be kept, no matter what. #learning to be present, #family first. It was a public acknowledgement of her failure and a public commitment to change. The cynical part of me wondered if it was just for show, another performance for an audience. But the hopeful part, the part that remembered why I'd fallen in love with Jessica in the first place, wanted to believe it represented genuine growth. The next morning, I woke to find Ethan already up and dressed, practically vibrating with excitement about the field trip. Jessica, too, was ready unusually early, her outfit casual but neat, a camera hanging around her neck. "I thought I'd document everything," she explained when she caught me looking. "Make a scrapbook for Ethan." The gesture was so reminiscent of the Jessica I'd first married, thoughtful, enthusiastic, fully engaged in our family life, that I felt an unexpected surge of emotion. "He'll love that," I managed. As they prepared to leave, Ethan ran back to give me one last hug. "Wish you could come too, Dad." "Next time," I promised. "Take lots of pictures with Mom, okay?" "We will!" He beamed up at Jessica, his earlier wariness replaced by cautious hope, a child's natural inclination to believe in the people he loved. I watched them drive away, Jessica waving from the driver's seat, Ethan's face pressed against the passenger window in exaggerated farewell. The sight of them together, heading toward a shared adventure, sparked something I hadn't felt in quite some time: possibility. I didn't know if Jessica would maintain her commitment to change. I didn't know if our marriage could be salvaged from the wreckage of broken trust and neglected connection. I didn't even know if trying to repair it was the right choice for any of us. But I did know this. Standing in that school auditorium, watching my son search the crowd for a mother who never arrived, had changed something fundamental in me. It had clarified my purpose and strengthened my resolve to ensure Ethan never felt that particular pain again. Whatever the future held, reconciliation or separation, a rebuilt family or a reconfigured one, I would stand up and cheer for him, louder than anyone. I would be present for every moment, big or small. I would keep the promises that mattered. And in doing so, I hoped to teach him the most important lesson of all, that his value was intrinsic and immutable, never dependent on someone else's presence or absence in the audience of his life. Because some promises, once made, became the very foundation upon which everything else was built. and I intended to keep mine, no matter what.